All right, let's talk about the Chicago Bears as we are getting ready for training camp. It is imminent. Football is getting closer and closer to returning. We're starting to hear more and more reports about certain players, certain additions, certain young guys that are emerging as steals, as great value finds throughout the entire National Football League. And Chicago is no different than any other franchise. But when you look at what the Bears have done, a lot of people aren't focusing on what I think could be the biggest steal any team has made over the past couple of years, and some recent reporting highlights this, which we'll get to in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick, that is Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, this time of year, and really any time of the year after the draft, when people look at steals, when people look at values, they look at, oh, did you get a second round player in the sixth round? Or even if it's during free agency, hey, did you sign a player for 5 million who's really worth 15? And all that's 100% valid. But what can really go into a steal is when you've got a star player and a really solid player, and you sign and extend them for the long term for an incredible discount. And when the market adjusts to it, you can take a step back and realize, wow, we got a great player for pennies on the dollar. And some recent news that has come out of a different franchise indicates the Bears have just done that. Let's pull up this tweet, this report highlighting this news. Then we'll get into the data involving this on the other side. This is courtesy of Diana Rossini. Here's the new deal for Sauce Gardner, the Jets corner. 4-year, $120.4 million, $31 million per year per sources. He is the highest paid corner in the history of the National Football League. Now we're talking about Sauce Gardner, number one corner for the New York Jets. So obviously the attention shifts to Jaylon Johnson, the number one corner for the Chicago Bears. Now, Bears fans, if you remember, it was announced March of last year, 2024, that the Bears had extended, signed, locked down Jaylon Johnson to a 4-year deal of their own right, but for significantly less. A big time discount. We're talking $19 million per year annualized compared to $30 million per year for Sauce Gardner. Now let's look at the data and compare these two players, because although Gardner gets a lot more publicity, when you break down the numbers, Johnson is just as good, maybe even better. Let's pull up our first chart right here to highlight what I'm talking about. So this is Gardner versus Johnson right here, 2024, the season only. We've got Sauce Gardner in blue. We've got Johnson in red, and you can see the overall grade on the left side, and then the coverage specific grade, courtesy of PFF, on the right. And you can see Jaylon Johnson, he graded out overall about mid-70s last year. Sauce Gardner right around 70. Johnson clearly better. Coverage grade a lot closer, but you can see in the red there, Johnson edges out Sauce Gardner as the better cover player in 2024. So at this, it looks like, okay, recency indicates that Jaylon Johnson was better. But let's look at their best seasons, right? Because obviously Bears had a tough season, Jets had a tough season. Maybe it's not fair to compare the 2024 results. So let's go to our next chart here, highlighting their best seasons, right? Let's see what they are at their peak. And you can see pretty darn close. You can see overall grade right there on the left. Again, Sauce Gardner in blue, Jaylon Johnson in red. Really close right there, right around 90. But Johnson, again, edging him out slightly. And you can see coverage grade right there on the right, essentially identical. Again, Gardner in blue, Johnson in red. Gardner has a tiny, like 0.1 lead on Jaylon Johnson right there, but essentially the same. So you can look at this and take these two charts and say, okay, at their best, Gardner and Johnson are the same caliber player. And compared to the most recent performance, Johnson is a little bit better. So with that in mind, let's go into the dollars to highlight what we're talking about. So again, we already discussed this, but here's the APY for both these players. Sauce Gardner on the left. We've got Jaylon Johnson on the right in this chart right here. You can see Gardner, like I mentioned in the report, courtesy of Diana Rossini, his APY per year money, $30 million. Jaylon Johnson, about $19 million. That's a big delta, obviously. For those of you who are less inclined at math, that's $11 million. That's a huge, huge differential. Now, what does that come down to here? Let's go to our final chart right here. Again, big Microsoft Excel channel. Let's go to value. And this is exactly what we're talking about. Grade per dollar right here. We've got Sauce Gardner and we've got Jaylon Johnson right here. We got on the left, we've got their 2024 season grade per dollar. And on the right, we've got their best season. So we're just looking at the value in terms of their performance via those analytics based on their APY. And you can see whether you look at the 2024 campaign or the best season between these two guys, Jaylon Johnson has significantly more value per the cost of his contract based on his performance than Sauce Gardner. It's not even close. Like the delta on the screen right here, folks, it is significant. It is massive to have two high caliber corners, two high caliber players at any position, both in the prime of their careers, to have this much differential in value. That is a sign of a massive high value deal. That's a sign of a huge steal. Whatever you want to quantify it, however you want to describe it, the Bears got one of the biggest steals I think I've seen in the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, right? We talk again, like I mentioned before, about, oh, did you get a draft steal? Did you get an undrafted free agent steal? This is just as important, guys. This is just as valuable as all of those undrafted free agent steals we talk about all the time on this channel and everyone else does, right? Getting great players at significant discounts is absolutely ridiculous. This is good general management work, and this opens up the doors for other moves, for other opportunities. Like we talk about all the time, if you get a quality player in the 6th round, that didn't cost you very much. A 6th round pick is low capital. Same kind of concept here. The Bears, for the cost of an elite corner at $30 million, they got him for 19. This is what good GMs do. This is what good franchises do. This is why Warren extended Poles. And this, along with the addition of Ben Johnson and the talent they've added on the roster, is why the Bears will be serious contenders, not just this upcoming season as they look to rebuild after a disappointing 2024, but for many years to come. Solid, sound roster decision making like this, great value finds. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. Lord knows I've thrown a lot of stuff out there. But first, Bears fans, in the comment section below, we're talking about Ryan Poles and this big, I'm going to call it a steal because I think that's what it was. But we're talking about just a smart moves that he's made throughout of his tenure with Chicago. So let me ask you this. What is the best move Ryan Poles has made in your opinion, right? Obviously, there's the DJ Moore trade and that big draft deal that comes to the top of everyone's mind. And maybe that's what you think. Maybe it's this decision. Maybe it's another one. Give us what you think was the best move Ryan Poles has made to date and put it in the comment section below. And while you're down there, make sure you sign up for our weekly newsletter courtesy of the Substack platform. 100% free, not trying to sell you anything. We're just trying to give you extra content, put up extra articles, links to some interesting stuff, some cool thoughts for you guys. We also highlight the best comment of the week. So if you got a great comment, you may find yourself in there. Again, there's a link in the description box below, 100% free for our weekly newsletter. But Mize, enough from me, over to you. What are your thoughts on this latest out of Chicago?
Yeah, like I think when you break it down and you look at it, I think we know this. We looked at the data, but might be a little bit hot take. I definitely think Jalen Johnson is a little bit better player than Sauce Gardner, and I think definitely the value is unquestionable. The value, he's more a valuable player as far as getting what you pay for than Sauce Gardner is. But I got a little extra information here that I think was quite interesting when you compare these two guys. So you look at Sauce Gardner, and undoubtedly his rookie and sophomore seasons were very, very good. He graded out really, really well. And I think there's a lot to say about that because when you look at Sauce Gardner's best years, 2022 and 2023, where were the Jets' defenses ranked? What kind of players were around him? What caliber of defense was he with? He was in the first and second, respectively, best defenses in the NFL at that time. And we all know there's a lot of different factors to getting good coverage grades. How good is your pass rush? How good are the guys up front? What's the people around you? If you have, other lockdown corners there, if you got guys that are coming off the edge really quick, getting to the quarterback, it's a little bit easier to cover and get good coverage grade. Not knocking Sauce Gardner to say that he's a bad player, but I'm just saying you can look at those first two seasons. He was one of the best defenses in the NFL. And when we flip to Jalen Johnson, when he had his best year in 2023, we look at the Bears defense. They had the 29th best defense in the NFL. Not very good, folks. He did not have a whole lot of help. So I'm going to throw this out there. I think Jalen Johnson is even more of a value now because he's on the ascent. He's getting better grades now than he did in his first 3 years. Sauce Gardner's actually kind of taken a step back a little bit. And last year in 2024, when this was a guy who was on a Jets team that defensively, you look at their rankings, this was the 25th best defense in the NFL last year. They took a steep decline from being top 2. This guy put up some arguably worse numbers. He did not do quite as well when the defense wasn't doing as well. So I think there's some argument here. Jalen Johnson's looking pretty good right now for me. He doesn't need, the best defense in the NFL to surround him to shine and do really well. He's put into a situation. He's able to do some really good stuff. And I think we're seeing good things out of Jalen Johnson. So not only is what you're saying absolutely true, this guy is super valuable as far as he is outperforming his contract when you compare it to the rest of the league. This is a guy, dollars to, stats. No one's beating this guy. Jalen Johnson looks really, really good against the best corners in the league. But when you look at what you got from him, he's only getting better. He's put up 2 back-to-back really good seasons, a top 13 corner in the NFL last year, number one corner in the NFL in 2023. Really good back-to-back seasons, and he doesn't need the ideal circumstances. He doesn't need the perfect defense surrounding him. So I love this for Jalen Johnson. I love it for the Bears. And I think this was a really solid move by Ryan Poles once again, locking down this guy early for a steal of a deal.
Yeah, what does this mean in terms of actual effect on the roster, that delta, that value, that steal of a deal? I like the way you described it. It basically means instead of a team like the Jets, they just get Sauce Gardner, good player, Jalen Johnson. You think he's better? I'm going to be just as impartial as I can be right now and say they're the same caliber, just to make it easy, right? So you got the Jets, they get Sauce Gardner. The Bears, they get, of course, Jalen Johnson. They also get Devin Duvernay for that dollar delta to be a depth wide receiver piece. They get Joe Tooney to be a massive upgrade on their offensive line. Plus, even with that, they got about 1 million, 1 to 2 million left over to maybe throw out for some undrafted free agents to see if you can get some good depth, some opportunities to find some steals there. So that's what the Bears got. And that's the value part of this equation. That's why Ryan Poles deserves a lot of credit, because we're a team like the Jets. A lot of people said, hey, good deal, not, solid roster management, nothing terrible there. The Bears got, let's say, the same caliber of player. Some people may say better. They got the same caliber, just for my argument, plus Joe Tooney, plus Devin Duvernay, plus about $2 million, right? This is how you win, guys. This is how you figure out a way to make deep playoff runs and build a talented roster. Obviously, you need to have head coach correct, right? They think they got that hopefully with Ben Johnson. Same thing at the quarterback position with Caleb Williams. Now it's about building a talented, deep roster with very few weaknesses. That's good in a lot of areas, very similar to how the Kansas City Chiefs, how the Philadelphia Eagles, how they build their rosters. That's what the Bears have done now with Ryan Poles. A lot of people are really high on Poles for what he's done. There were some question marks coming into this offseason. Warren extended him. He's here for the long term, pairing him with Ben Johnson. They're tied at the hip. Same thing with Caleb Williams. When you look at all the moves the Bears have made, and you look at the decisions, the value they found, the great roster additions, the draft picks, obviously the coaching staff, there is nothing you can look at that makes you think that this Bears team won't be significantly better, not just in 2025, but for following seasons as well. And I think this is what should get Bears fans so excited. Let's say things go bad and they miss the playoffs, right? It's a tough NFC North, to be honest, right? It's going to be brutal. NFC has a lot of really good teams at the top. When you look at like Philly and things like that, NFC North being one of those wild card teams, unless you win the division, that's going to be hard to do. It's a bloodbath in that division. But let's say you miss the playoffs. Let's you go 8-9 or something like that. Guess what? The future is still going to be bright because you have the infrastructure in place. You've got Ryan Poles making good moves. You found a lot of value. You're making good quality deals. When you do that enough and you go through this process enough, like the Eagles have, like the Chiefs have, eventually success comes. Eventually postseason success comes. And I think Bears fans, you should hang your hat on that. It may happen this year, but if it doesn't, I think it's right around the corner. This is the best the Bears have been, just from a franchise perspective, in a very, very long time.